Bird used to tell me, look here, man. I'm gonna go shoot this motherfucking jumper in your face right there in that corner. And it's gonna be your Christmas present. I'm gonna wrap it up and bust your head open.
If you had 273 professional athletes here, professional basketball player, and you say who's the dirtiest player in the NBA, you know, I say 95%, I say Lambeer or Larry Bird.
Larry made me have sleepless nights.
There's a difference between respecting a player's talent and actually fearing what he's capable of. And the NBA has seen plenty of legends who demanded respect. Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, and Kevin Garnett among them. But according to the players who face him, only one man inspired real fear, Larry Bird. He didn't look intimidating, wasn't the fastest or most athletic player on the floor, and often looked more like a regular guy than a basketball superstar. Yet he had an unmatched ability to destroy opponents mentally before the game was even decided. Bird didn't just outplay people. He got inside their heads, confidently predicting exactly what he was about to do and then backing it up every single time. Even Hall of Famers who built their careers on toughness and trash talk admit he was different. As Gary Payton once said, Larry Bird was the coldest trash talker ever, and he backed it up because he was so cold. Charles Barkley tells one of the most famous stories from the inaugural NBA three-point contest, when the greatest shooters in the league were getting ready in the locker room and Bird walked in, looked around, and casually asked, "Which one of you guys is finishing second?" The contest hadn't even started, but that's the kind of confidence and psychological dominance that made Larry Bird a player even the NBA's toughest legends were afraid to face.
Yeah, Larry Bird was the coldest talker ever, man. And he bagged it up because he was so cold.
Larry Bird didn't just win the first NBA three-point contest, he made it his personal stage. After taking the crown in 1986, he came back and won again in 1987, then completed the three-peat in 1988, turning the event into his own annual showcase. The legends surrounding those victories only add to the mystique. Some players swear Bird was so confident he barely even bothered taking off his warm-up jacket before shooting. But as unbelievable as that sounds, what happened during a game against the Philadelphia 76ers might be even crazier. In the middle of the action, Bird walked over to Charles Barkley, pulled him aside, and calmly started talking to him. Not to exchange words, but to tell him exactly what he was about to do next. And if you knew anything about Larry Bird, you
could have heard a pin.
Charles Barkley had no answer. Years later, Larry Bird himself explained the moment during an ESPN interview, saying, "Asterisk, I just didn't want a white guy guarding me because it's disrespectful to my game." Asterisk, it was a perfect example of what made Bird different. He didn't just use his skill to dominate opponents. He used their own expectations against them. Somehow, he turned his own identity into a psychological weapon, making defenders question not only how to guard him, but whether they were even worthy of the assignment. That wasn't ordinary trash talk. That was pure mind games, and Bird was the undisputed master of it. But as incredible as that story was, it was only the beginning, because if Bird could get into Charles Barkley's head, what happened next proved he could do it to anyone, even Dennis Rodman, the man who built his reputation by mentally and physically exhausting the league's best scorers, had never encountered someone who could beat him at his own game. In Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals at the Boston Garden, a 25-year-old Rodman arrived as a Detroit Pistons secret weapon, a relentless defender who obsessed over film, sacrificed sleep, and lived for shutting stars down. But against Larry Bird, none of that preparation mattered. Before the game was over, the hunter had become the hunted.
I remember him, he was cursing under his breath. And I asked him, I said, "Larry, what's going on with you?" He says, "You guys are being disrespectful to me." And I says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "You guys are putting a white guy on me." That's disrespectful.
Wait, who's the white guy you put on him?
I can't remember who it was. I just started laughing. I had no comeback. But he says, "It's disrespectful when y'all put a white guy on me."
Dennis Rodman threw everything he had at Larry Bird, and it still wasn't enough. By the final buzzer, Bird had put together one of those all-time playoff performances, 37 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists, leading the Celtics to a 9-point victory and crushing Detroit's hopes. But for Bird, dominating the box score wasn't enough. He wanted to win the mental battle too. In another matchup against the Pistons, he looked over at head coach Chuck Daly right in the middle of the game and shouted, "Asterisk, asterisk, who's guarding me? Chuck? Is anybody guarding me? You better get somebody on me, or I'm going for 60. Asterisk, asterisk, the incredible part wasn't that he said it. The incredible part was that everyone on the court believed he could actually do it. Daly had no response, and neither did the Pistons. Bird had a way of making even the toughest defenders feel helpless. After that crushing Game 7 defeat, the frustration got to Rodman. The loss and Bird's relentless mind games got under his skin so deeply that he made comments afterward that he would later regret and publicly apologize for. That's the effect Larry Bird had on people. He didn't just beat opponents. He stayed with them long after the game was over.
So that was my whole job, to guard the toughest guy on the team, on the other teams. So, so I'm guarding him. And every time I turn my head, he's over there in the 3-point line. He said, "I'm over here, Rook." I'm like...
Dennis Rodman, the Worm, a 5-time NBA champion and arguably the greatest rebounder of his era, has openly admitted that Larry Bird gave him one of the toughest lessons of his career. For a player who built his legacy on toughness, defense, and getting inside other people's heads, Bird somehow managed to turn the tables. But as incredible as Rodman's story is, what happened to Gary Payton might be even more unbelievable. Payton built an entire Hall of Fame career by breaking opponents down with relentless trash talk. He was a man who never stopped talking, the player many consider the greatest verbal competitor the NBA has ever seen, someone who even pushed Michael Jordan to another level. Yet after facing Larry Bird just 4 times and losing all 4 games, Payton came away with a completely different understanding of what elite trash talk looked like. Years later, on Draymond Green's Throwing Bones podcast, Payton admitted that Bird wasn't just talking to entertain himself. He was using words as a weapon, saying things to opponents that sounded impossible in the moment, and then going out and proving every single one of them true.
No, I told you, I just said, I was green. I was just saying anything, man, just because, you know what, I was frustrated because guess what? I got my ass whooped.
Gary Payton didn't hesitate when asked about the greatest trash talker he ever faced. In his eyes, there was no debate. Larry Bird was the coldest dude I ever saw. Payton said, giving the ultimate sign of respect to a player who mastered the mental side of the game. The story spread quickly across the basketball world, with LeBron James sharing the clip on Instagram and Kevin Garnett bringing it up again during an appearance on JJ Redick's podcast. But what made Bird stand out wasn't just that he talked trash, it was how he did it. According to Payton, Bird